Afternoon. I'm Bill Amadeo. I'm a criminal lawyer in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm a partner at McManus and Amadeo, and we have offices in Ann Arbor, Livonia, Lansing, and Grand Rapids. Today, we're going to talk about the topic of homicides in Michigan. When we talk about murder, we're really talking about the most serious of crimes that a prosecutor can bring against a defendant. When you're charged with a murder in Michigan, you're generally facing life in prison. And there's three types of murders we got to watch out for. The three big flavors of murder we're going to talk about today are felony murder, first-degree murder, and second-degree murder. Now, along with these podcasts, we also do a blog. And the blog is going to talk about more of the academic aspect of things. What I'm going to do is just cut to the chase and talk about the crimes themselves today. Felony murder. In Michigan, if you commit a felony and somebody dies, as an approximate cause of death is through that felony or the attempt of that felony, you're hit with felony murder. Now, what's that really mean? Well, let's talk about it. You go into Myers. You decide you want to steal a can of tuna fish. And you're stealing it, and it's a simple larceny. And the security guard runs after you and has a heart attack while chasing you. You could be charged with felony murder. When you're charged with felony murder, you're facing life in prison. Now, one of the things about felony murder we have to understand is not every prosecutor's office will bring such a charge. If you're in a place like Washtenaw, it'd be a stretch. If you're in a place like Shiawassee or Lapeer, they may look to charge. One of the things people do not understand in the criminal justice system is the smaller the community, the more difficult the prosecutor's office is going to be to deal with the defendant. So, with felony murder, it being such a broad type of charge, the key thing the lawyer has to do before you ever step in the trial is really study who's going to be in your jury pool. The concept of voir dire is going to be critical. And what voir dire means is you're selecting who's going to be on your jury, who's not going to be on your jury. With a charge like felony murder, which is a capital offense, you have 12 preemptory challenges. And what a preemptory challenge, which is known as a preempt in our world, is you have 12 justifications to kick somebody off your jury. Could be for basically anything. There are limitations with race and gender that falls in the Batson challenges, but that's a topic for another video. You get these 12 challenges, and what we learn with a crime like felony murder, especially like a Wayne County or something like that, is the jury is picking their teams before you make your case. So if the lawyer doesn't know how to pick a good jury, the criminal defendant's going to have a major problem on their hands. You have to connect with the jury. In some communities, a simple larceny that turns into a murder may seem crazy to who's on the jury. In other communities, the defendant is deemed guilty before you even start the case. The ability of the lawyer is going to be essential. So with felony murder, what you need to understand is if you're charged with that, it's really a lot like real estate. It's all about location. What is the pulse of the prosecutor's office and who's going to be in that panel that's going to decide whether my defendant does life in prison or goes home at the end of the day? It's a pretty serious charge. Now, felony murder, quite often, is looked at the same way as first-degree murder. First-degree murder, we're really looking at something where there was premeditation. Again, the blog will talk more about the academic aspect of it, but the reason why first-degree murder is always deemed as the pinnacle of criminal charges is because the defendant actually planned it out. The preparation is what's going to be essential when a prosecutor's office brings this charge. It's not just that somebody died. It's that the defendant wanted to accomplish this. They prepared for it. They deliberated about it. A lot of thought process that goes into that. And one of the things we're seeing a lot more these days is the transferred intent doctrine come into play. And here's what that means. A wants to kill B, and A plans to kill B and accidentally kills C. Well, in that situation, a prosecutor's office could charge A with first-degree murder of C through the transferred intent doctrine. They could also charge him with attempted murder of B. So, once again, it's all about the pulse of the prosecutor's office. The last big murder we're talking about today is second-degree murder. When we're talking about second-degree murder, we see that there was intent. But that's all we really see. It doesn't necessarily mean there was premeditation. And the difference between first-degree murder and second-degree murder, that's the difference between night and day. For right now, what I want you to understand is if you have a murder charge, the biggest thing to take from this video, and then we're going to field some questions that have been emailed in, biggest thing to think about is, who's my jury pool? Whether it's sales, whether it's law, whether it's sports, there's always a concept of knowing who your audience is. If you don't know who your audience is, you got a problem. Who are going to be those people in the box? Who are those 12 jurors and those 1 or 2 alternates? Who are the people that are deciding the crime? Has the press been involved? Can your lawyer utilize the press? So on and so forth. With that said, we have some emails here. And these were all put on blogs. And what happens is, so you guys know for future videos, we'll do a blog, and then people email us. And we'll put our email on YouTube and on Facebook, so feel free. There's no charge for emails, but we're going to answer some emails right now. So here's the first one. All right. William, my cousin is charged with felony murder, and it's in a very small county in Michigan. My cousin has several prior crimes, but he's not guilty of this. What advice would you give? All right, well, you said a small community. When I think small community in Michigan, I mean, am I talking Lapeer? Am I talking Caro? Am I talking Shiawassee? Now, if you're in Shiawassee, you're dealing with Judge Matthew Stewart in circuit court. If you're in Lapeer, you're dealing with Judge Nick Colloqua. And if you're in Cary, you're dealing with Judge Amy Gearhart. One of the things our firm has got a lot of experience in is that we've practiced throughout almost every circuit court in the state of Michigan. So there's understanding of the jury pool, the judges, the prosecutor's office, and the probation department. To answer your question, I'm going to ask you to email me back. Let me know specifically. But when you say small community with prior crimes, what I'd really want to know, has the case drawn attention in the press? How many newspapers are in your area? You know, is there a feeling that your cousin is guilty before we even start the game? If there is, there's certain things that we could do. You said that your cousin's innocent. Well, was a private polygraph done? Was a psychological evaluation done? Is there a motive for somebody to lie? Are there complaining witnesses? It's a lot that goes into that question. So, with that being said, I'm going to want you to email me more specifics. But when you say small community, I'm thinking Lapeer, Shiawassee, or Caro. And each one of those jurisdictions create their own pitfalls. So I'll be happy to discuss it with you further, but I do want a little more details. Thanks for the email. Second email. My husband was found guilty of first-degree murder several years ago in Washtenaw County. There's an appeal process going on, and how long will the appeal process take? Okay, well, here's what I'd want to know about that case. Number one, I'm not going to put it on the internet, but I do want to know who your husband is. Because when you say he was found guilty in Washtenaw County, one of the key things there is I want to know who the prosecutor is. There's differences between prosecutors. There's one prosecutor in Washtenaw County that is viewed one way before the Court of Appeals. Then there's 3 others that are viewed a completely different way. Won't get into names right now, but I will tell you there is one particular prosecutor who's had several murder trials where there was guilty verdicts overturned. A lot of that's going to depend upon who your appellate lawyer is. We do appeals. Tim Doman and David Herzog are 2 great appellate lawyers I know. It's one of those situations where your appellate lawyer, the issues they see, coupled with who the prosecutor is going to make a huge difference there. I'd want to know the case name. I'd like to do a little research on my own and really find out who that prosecutor was. In Washtenaw, there was probably 2 prosecutors. One was the lead, one was second chair. Whoever that lead was, there is one particular prosecutor that's had several cases before the Court of Appeals, and if you have that particular prosecutor, it might give your husband an edge. I need to know more about the case. Thanks for the email. All right, here's one. My cousin was found guilty of second-degree murder in Ingham County. The judge who presided over the case made a lot of rulings I didn't deem were fair, and that judge is no longer on the bench. What advice do you have? All right, well, there's several judges that are no longer on the bench that were in Ingham County that presided over homicides. There was a lot of interesting things going on in Ingham County. So what I want you to tell me on that, and once again we won't put this on the internet, but who was the investigating officer? Ingham County has always been known as a pretty interesting county. I'll leave it at that. But when Stuart Dunnings was there, things were done one way. When Gretchen Whitmer was there, things were done a second way. And now with Carol Simeon, we see a whole different aspect. So I'd want to know what year this was done. If it was a Dunnings case, that could give you a great chance for an appeal. Was a Whitmer case, there's more of an uphill battle. And I'm assuming it's not Carol's case because it's a case that where it was a conviction a while ago, I'm assuming. But once again, I'd want to know who the prosecutor was, who the OIC, the officer in charge was, review the preliminary transcript. It's a lot of things that need to be done there. All right, here's one from Lapeer. My cousin is being charged with murder, and the charge was just issued. Should we want a preliminary examination? Well, okay. I'd want to know who the prosecutor is. Are we talking Dave Campbell? Are we talking Robert Hinojosa? Are we talking Goza, or is Sharkey running this himself? We'll do more of a Lapeer podcast later in time. Here's the thing with a preliminary examination. Let's start with this. When you're dealing with a murder charge, you should always run a prelim. Don't expect to win the prelim. It's such a low burden to win a preliminary examination for the prosecution. What you have to do is use the prelim as a discovery tool. It's an old saying. The more times somebody tells a story, the more inconsistent it goes. So you definitely want to use the preliminary examination as a general rule. Now, we're talking about Lapeer. So we're going to start with a general rule, then we're going to get more specific. Generally, when there's a murder charge, we definitely want to run that prelim and use it as a discovery mechanism. That is criminal defense 101. Now, if we're in Lapeer, I want you to think about this specifically. is your cousin going to plead guilty eventually? I don't know enough about your case right now. But if you think a guilty plea is going to be forthcoming, what you have is one circuit court judge in Lapeer, and that's Nick Holowko. And Judge Holowko is somebody I admire a great deal. He's taught me a lot. My first CSC cases were before Judge Holowko, and he pulled me in chambers and taught me a lot about the game. I respect the man a great deal. I've learned a lot in Lapeer, and I can tell you this. If you feel you're going to plead guilty and this is not going to be a case that you want to try, waiving the prelim is going to win you a lot of favor with Judge Holowko. It might save you years of freedom. If we're going the Green Mile and we're trying the case, it's a no-brainer to run the prelim. I don't know who your current lawyer is. There's some good lawyers in Lapeer. There's some that are really lacking. With that being said, the strategy is really going to be about what do you see happening in the future. If you think this is going to be a case that's going to happen a plea bargain, you really want to consider waiving that prelim before it gets to Judge Holowko. It's going to give your cousin a great chance of getting a Cobb's agreement, which might be at the bottom end of the guidelines and might save him a lifetime of freedom. If it's something that we're trying the case, and my guy's innocent, they're saying he's guilty, it's just going to be a street fight, if that's where we're at with it, then you run the prelim. And I wouldn't call any witnesses myself at that prelim. I would just question theirs. It's a lot that goes into that. The biggest murder trial recently in Lapeer, the one that caught the most attention, is the Casey Grondin case. And that case just got overturned on appeal for a new trial. And there were a lot of things that happened in the Grondin case which were really interesting. One thing I want to advise you is if we're going to trial on something like that, you need to have a lot of witnesses. In Lapeer, the volume of witnesses is almost as important as the quality of the witnesses. If you're handing the prosecutor's office 10 to 15 page witness list, it's going to enhance your opportunity to get a great plea if that's the direction we're going. So I would tell the lawyer, volume on the witness list, potentially waiving the prelim if we're looking for a plea. It's a lot that goes into it. Lapeer's just a different community. And when I say it's different, there's a lot of pressure on that prosecutor's office. All right, that's it for now. Nick Sanderson, my investigator, he runs all our PR. He'll put contact information on the YouTube videos and the Facebook videos. And we'll look forward to more of these. Next week we'll be doing a CSC tutorial, if you would. That'll be the podcast. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for your time.